So let's talk about nice experience. Well, first, a little bit of boring things. I'm a legal person. I love corporate law analysis and to analyze Anglo-Saxon system of regulation that UK belongs to. This system is different from Russian Federation that belongs to so-called Roman German family of laws, and key difference, and I apologize for that, that our norms are more generalized and they contain more clear definitions. But if we take administrative law, then we can completely exclude the subject from that. Anglo-Saxon system of law and different approach is typical. They also have some general norms and recommendations of what and how to do it. They also have quite a big area of guidance, guiding principles, definitions, clarifications, what Ravil called framework documents. Yes, baseline, basic documents that answer principal questions. Why these norms exist? What was the purpose of that? So how it should be developed later on what subjects it is focused on, and there are multiple methodological approaches that shows the subjects, how they work. So this system tells us not only what to do and also how to do it, and this is very tempting approach because it allows very dynamically introduce new approaches into law, and you can understand all subjects and what is required from that. So the document we are going to talk about, this framework, nice real-world evidence framework, it's not an exception. So NICE, National Institute of Excellence in Healthcare, so published this document in June, and they provided the description on what and why we use the data of practice, how they transform into the evidence, how we can use methodological approaches to the collection of data, to the analysis, to exclusion of bias, etc., etc. And if we look at the preamble, it tells us this document does not contain any minimal standards of quality. It's mainly on how this part allows the market to collect and to regulate the data of real clinical practice, and it contains very clear referral to the fact that all the standards, they are presented in the practical documents, they are setting the standards, so that means this.
Итак, мы вернулись к слайдам.
So we go back to the slides. And now I am saying about the definition of RWD, which is given by British NICE. So this is the data about the status of health of the patient or medical experience collected beyond clinical trials. So this is a global experience that meets the experience which is available in the United States. Then NICE tells us that the real-world data analysis can give us evidence based on this data, and this evidence can improve our process of providing care, then health of the patients and their experience, and also influence of health technologies, including medical devices and digital technologies in routine conditions. So yes, this is also a standard approach that reflects the general trends and also the approach described in the United States. Then, from the point of methodology, NICE is telling us how we are getting evidence based on a real clinical practice. And here NICE describes three key principles. First is transparency. So we should get this evidence through very transparent and clear approaches. Also, it should be good practice, starting from planning up to reporting. Then you have to be sure that data is trustful and data has proper quality in order to answer the question. So data is feasible, so applicability and feasibility. And finally, the need of analytical methods, because they reduce bias and they can assess the uncertainty. Because when we collect the data from the real clinical practice, something can drop or mistakes or errors may happen.
Подход и говорит о том, как необходимо подходить не только к проведению исследования, да, но и к планированию. Вот,
this is how we need to approach to the planning and to the study. We need to plan it in advance, and options of the protocol should be published. We need to collect data that we can trust.
Дизайн исследований и аналитические методы должны
The design of the study and analytical methods should meet the objectives, keeping in mind possible bias. And we also need to establish and implement the standards of quality for the integrity of data. And this is, again, general global approach, which is reflected by the most progressive regulators in the United States and in China. So it's important to mention here, NICE tells us that we need to stick to local law and rules and good practice code, because again, at the very beginning of the documents, that framework is not setting minimum standards. It gives just recommendation and more details you should look for in documents of other levels, so code of good practice. And then in the studies, we need to make the reporting very transparent, and those who later on can check this reporting, they can check how it was done, so it increases the trust to the result, and then independent researchers can repeat and reproduce it. And this is also very important through the whole NICE document. So it is the same situation.
Практики, естественно, подготовка отчетности. Естественно, NICE говорит в своей методике.
Naturally, NICE in its methods telling us that the data should be assessed from the point of applicability. There are two factors here: the origin of data, why the data was collected, which data, who and how was collecting the data, then how the data management was ongoing, and also applicability of the data to the purposes of studies. And then NICE splits it into criteria. Again, relevance of data. So from the point of quality, NICE tells us we need to assess how precisely data is provided. If there is lack of data, we need to find why. Also, the data should be precise, and also the relevance. So whether the origin contains all the parameters of the study, so whether it meets the conditions of providing medical care according to the requirements of regulator, the size of sampling, and the period of follow-up. So once again, these are obvious things on the one hand, but on the other hand, methodologically, it's quite helpful to those who are promoting the studies in the real practice. So they can be easily guided up to checklists, so which questions they should answer in order to get best quality results. And another very big piece in the NICE documents, this is comparative effect study. So, and NICE tells us that OWD, OWE can be used with the absence of evidence in clinical trials or add-on to answer more questions about the consequences of intervention in routine practice. And NICE in the framework document provides examples, best practices or best approaches how to analyze these or those cases. And here, from the point of methodology, NICE gives us algorithm from 4 points, which is extremely important, because for us, the real clinical practice should be done in the best quality. So we need to use the approach of so-called target trial approach. So they tell us then we need to identify potential biases, or let's say difficulties or bottlenecks. We need also to take into account the bias. If there are some errors, mistakes, or subjective point of view during data collection, or some data drops off. And if you see something like that, it should be eradicated in order to get more precise results. And besides, in the number of segments of the documents, we'll see notifications that the analysis of sensitivity and bias analysis should be carried out to assess the reliability of results, for analysis of reliability. I think NICE has quite tempting and very sensitive methodological approach, which describes what to do and how to do it. And also it has some qualitative referrals to additional documents, which again contain requirements to the collection and analysis of data, and they tell us what we should try to reach as a subjects in the pharmaceutical industry in order to carry them in the best quality and get very reliable results. And very frequently, these results can support the data which was obtained, let's say, in the previous clinical trials, or in some cases, they could add on, be the add-on, or they could go the opposite. And in the NICE documents, there are some examples. And again, the document shows how valuable this data could be for the healthcare in general. And that's it. And thank you very much.